Randall Warnas, thank you so much for joining us from Anzu. And how am I saying that? First of all, how am I saying that?
Yeah, Anzu Robotics. Yeah.
Anzu Robotics. I have just posted a press release. It's gone out about 30 seconds ago, and you've very kindly allowed me to talk to Ian and I to talk to you about this new product that you have. Maybe you just want to start by unpacking it a little bit for us.
For sure. So it's been a long journey to get to this point. Putting out the press release is really like a burden off of my shoulders because for a long time in the background, it's trying to figure out how to make this happen. And I feel like what we set out to do is answer a question of what if you could take world's leading technology and then get rid of all of the geopolitical concerns that exist or that float around that technology and build it in a way that people feel like their data is secure and feel like they can use it for years to come without any sort of hurdles or regulatory impediments to that product. So we took some of the best technology in the world in a certain class of airframe that I feel like is used for, everything from public safety to utility inspections, solar inspections, you name it, where drones are being used, this drone can fit into that space. And we found a way to, take that highly used, mature technology and manufacture it in Malaysia, sourcing the componentry almost entirely in Malaysia, where some components still, do come out of China just because that is where a lot of technology or a lot of hardware is built and built in a way that it's still cost effective. But in this case, just thermal sensors specifically is still taken out of China. But there's no smart components that add to the drone's intelligence that are taken out of China, manufacture it in Malaysia. Then we take that hardware into the United States. And then we partnered with Aloft, which formerly is Kitty Hawk. They've been building drone software stuff since 2015. They're FAA audited. They are ISO certified. They're SOC 2 Type 2 certified. So we basically put the data inside of their ecosystem on US servers. And so now what we have as a statement is we have a US owned and operated company building drone technology in Malaysia and then securing it all in the United States with an organization that houses data from many drone manufacturers. And up until now, all of that data from those drone manufacturers has been good to go. So we figured that being the way that you capture and store data from the Anzu platform should be good enough for anyone's speculation as far as the security of their data.
Now, here's my before Ian asks some grown-up questions. So, am I right in that this is the Anzu Kermit drone? Is that what this is? Correct. Yeah. Okay. Good.
It's very frog-looking, kind of like Jurassic Park feeling. I think that there's something to be said about a drone that's distinct and recognizable as a brand.
Sure.
And that's part of the story of the green. But yeah, it actually in person, I challenge anybody to say that it's awful. I know that you'd said that it was awful in the early FCC leaking things. In person, it's actually that's actually pretty cool. And I stand by that.
No, it's just amused me, and the PR pictures that you sent me. I'm afraid all I can see is Kermit the Frog, but good for you. I mean, it does make it stand out.
Sure.
Now, here's my. Actually, I'm going to ask another question before I know Ian will be really keen to ask something. But the green AVSI green, dare I mention that? Green scheme?
That's not an intention. Green is just green. It's just one of the colors of the rainbow, and we chose one that isn't being used by other manufacturers, is able to be seen in the sun, and so green. But when we talk about compliance, this drone itself, as it stands, is likely never going to be on the Blue program. There's just way too much to undo, unless Blue changed their rules or they came to us and said, "Look, we want to give access to an affordable drone that of this class," and we're not intending to go in the defense space with this. Let's just say that. When it comes to green, much respect for Michael Robbins, much respect for AUVSI and the process of that. But I do not feel like we are trying to be everything to everyone. We build a drone that is affordable, that is reliable, that is quality, that is data secure. But if it's like you're not on the green list, we can't buy you. I'm sorry that you can't operate our drones. Like that's what the story is right now. When you go down the green path and you go through, it's not the data security components. It's, paying up front for what the third party stuff that they do is an additional cost to being a manufacturer, especially a new manufacturer. And if we had to change any componentry, any of the build, any of the things to become green certified, now those costs are just getting passed on to the customer. And the goal was to make it so that we are still in a price range of affordability for a non-Chinese drone. And I think we accomplished that. And when we start trying to pander to all of the flavors of the day, it's just not the path we want to go. And if that means that we're selling half of as many Anzu drones because of that, I think we're okay with that.
Over to you, Ian.
Yeah, that makes sense. It is. I guess it's weird to start, really. It's a familiar design is the term I'll use.
Mm-hmm.
You said you've partnered with a world-class drone company on this one.
Begins with D.
I guess for me, the first question is, you guys have got your manufacturing in Malaysia. Is that yours? Is it a partnership? What can you tell us about the manufacturing side before we come on to the software?
Sure. I don't own the facility, but it is the orders come from Anzu to factory in Malaysia that we selected out of doing research and looking who could help us mostly do the componentry sourcing, which is challenging. We found an organization to step up to the plate and say, look, we're well connected. We do other things. Like it's a very large operation that builds all sorts of things. And so, yeah, we don't own it, but we own the process, just like anyone that contract manufactures. And, in the drone space, we know Parrot does, we know Teal does do contract manufacturing. I know Teal was saying, we use the same contract manufacturer as some Apple products at some point. And so it's like, yeah, this is a normal drone manufacturer process. Most people don't want to have 80,000 square foot facilities and people sitting there all day waiting to build drones, when, to be honest, outside of a few manufacturers in the world, there's not a lot of the scale is not that large when it comes to drone manufacturing.
No, that makes sense. And really, I suppose, and I don't know if you can answer this, is it, you've got two ways you've got OEM, which is basically a manufacturer makes something without their name on it and it's sold out, or you've got a licensing, which is, here's the design. You then take you take it into where you want it made and they make it for you. Which of the two would you lean this on? Of the
100% the latter. It's a licensing agreement, and if we chose not Malaysia but Mexico or the United States, we could do that. If we decide to make modifications on that product, we can do that. This is owned by Anzu Robotics. Anything that has been decided on the product and anything that's going to be decided during the term of this contract, which is not a short amount of time, we can do what we want with this technology, and it's not being produced in a factory of the licensee licensor of the technology. They don't control how many units are made. They don't know how many units are made. They don't control what we do with any aspect of it. And I think it's so important, especially talking to you guys who were very early on with that FCC leak, and we're kind of poking at it and being like, what could this be?
Yeah.
What this is it's my company. It's a company that I direct the roadmap of, and if the roadmap includes other licensing, technologies that are licensed, maybe, but it could be our own technologies that we build around it or on top of it or to the side of it. This is not a shell company. This is not being, puppeteered. I was the CEO of a prominent Chinese technology builder for a very
bright colored drone, I may add.
Bright colored drone, yeah, and
almost the opposite to green, really. Yeah,
almost the opposite.
almost, yeah.
So I will say that my ability to work internationally in drones, I've been doing it now 10 years. I've traveled over 5 continents. I've spoken at conferences. I know most of the players in the space. It makes sense for someone like me to be in the position to try to accomplish this and to be in the middle of, a complicated thing. But I have been a expected to be somewhat of a puppet to an organization like that. There's no chance I would sign up for that again. And so I'm hoping transparently that this is not that. This is an opportunity to supply drone technology in the way that I've only dreamed of, to be in control of the best technology in the world, but to do it in a way where the business relationships are how I do my business relationship. The culture of the company is the culture that, ultimately I set, and it is kind of understood by Western culture, or just like it's more emotionally connected to the customer. And I feel like what I hope people find as a brand new company is launched today is that this is going to push the envelope to how the standard should be set. And if I were a brand new manufacturer with new technology that no one's ever touched, maybe people would be skeptical and I'd only have 10 customers by the end of the year. But there's a lot of these similar drones out in the world. You can trust the technology. You're going to have an amazing flight experience. Now it's, do you trust the company? Do you trust the person behind it? Do you trust the people behind it? Do you trust the processes? Me, like, not everyone, I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I've been in this space, and there's documented pedigree of what I stand for, and hopefully that carries some weight. And then when it comes to cybersecurity, Aloft is audited by the FAA. They are audited through the certification processes, and they were good enough yesterday, so they should be good enough today.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's some questions I want to ask on the software actually as well before we get on to that. So from a hardware point of view, today, is this more a copy and paste? You haven't done major changes, because you said something interesting. Okay, I'll say the product that it looks an awful lot like is the DJI Mavic 3 thermal. That's the product it looks like. Have you, whatever the license is, have you tried to keep within that, because that's reliable, that works, nothing, there's no great issues there? Is that what you've tried to do on day one?
So I believe that there's an article floating around about have we gotten the drone technology to a place where we're kind of going to plateau and it's good enough, right? Somebody wrote something like that very recently.
Funny you should mention that.
Yeah.
The question would be, what would you change?
Yeah.
What would you change? I know there's other manufacturers out in the world where it's like, you're really missing something. Your flight time is not up to snuff, or your sensors aren't very good, or you don't have sense and avoid. Yeah, that would be the one.
That would be
the one.
There's plenty of manufacturers that have growing to do on the hardware side. And the leading manufacturers, they're going to put out next generation stuff, no doubt. And it's going to be better than what we have today, no doubt. But what are those jumps? What are those leaps? They're probably incremental, and they probably don't solve a new problem. It's nice to haves. So when you're asking, what did we do to modify? We changed the color. It's one.
For day one.
A couple things that are going to be distinctive. And what you're seeing, the image that you put up earlier, that's all pre-production stuff, because we literally have production stuff landed yesterday. And so we are in the place where we have units and people are going to see, what this technology can do. But no, we did not make material changes to the hardware. No. It is world-leading hardware that does exactly what you want it to do. And I think most people would not doubt that hardware is very, very good.
Yeah,
it is really.
It is, isn't it? In its class, it is the thing. There's no doubt about it. It is. It's simple. We can't argue about it. We can't have a discussion. It is.
Yeah,
and we are getting to the stage in hardware where we're not agnostic, so we're not at the stage where all drones have the same hardware, but we sort of are, in the sense of, we all know the cameras basically come from Sony, the sensors basically come from Sony. Doesn't matter what you're making, the certain components come from certain ways. I guess then the real interesting area is the software, because once we level the playing field on the hardware, which is sort of what we've got here, then it comes down to the software. And there are two elements to this in my head. You've got the internal software, which is what the drone runs on a daily basis. And then you've got the app side of things. Are Aloft helping you with both of that? Is it just part of it? What's the score?
So in this licensing, process, we receive the flight stack from the manufacturer, right?
Yeah.
We received things that are custom and basically a snapshot in time, right? So let's imagine that the licensor of the technology does a firmware update. Doesn't affect our airframes at all. What we decide as a manufacturer is, do we want a copy of that and then to go through this whole process again, wrap it up, make sure that it's airtight, make sure nothing new got introduced, do a third-party penetration test on it again. Most things from a mature technology that's based on stuff that has been out for a couple years, close to a couple years, there's not going to be revolutionary changes. And if they are revolutionary, we determine we're going to go through that process again.
Yeah.
But we did get a snapshot in time. Here's what this firmware looks like, and then modified it to suit the drone. So when you're talking about flight dynamics, it's going to be mature. It's going to be the same.
And there's sort of a point to that. Both my Phantom and my Autel, I've never updated the firmware on them. I never. If it flies how I like it, I leave it. I don't touch it.
Exactly.
It really better. I don't know what else it can offer me for me to actually want to risk changing it. If it's not flying, then I'll change it. But I've never, on my Phantom 3, never changed it. On my little Autel, never changed it. Now, you mentioned something there that I wanted to extract a little bit. Yeah. I'm sorry if I'm jumping on you a little bit here, but you mentioned penetration testing. So does that mean this system has been through tests? Because lots of people are going to say, we've gone to the airframe. Lots of people are going to say, but China.
Yeah. So what we did is we contracted Aloft to write this app and to be a part of this whole journey, right? So up until today, there is an element that we have had to just trust they've done a really good job at that. And with the Aloft team, I've said, I trust you guys, you're doing what you're doing, but this all hinges on you doing a really good job at what we set out as the scope of work.
Yeah.
The penetration test, as of today, as of launch, is 1 day underway of a 2 to 3 week process. So we are not going to ship units to end users until we know that they come back and say, your stuff is airtight and you're good to go. So this is a commitment on launch day. We didn't receive production units until yesterday. Production unit gets sent directly to the third-party valid testing agency, which I will say, for transparency, there was 3 options selected by Aloft. We said, pick which one that you want, which one you think is best. This was not hand selected by us. It was not hand selected by another organization involved. It's as random as possible. And if we had to do it again, we'd choose a different one just to mix it up. I think that's a good process. We're not controlling this. I want them to come back and say, your stuff's amazing. If they come back and say, you got some stuff, I mean, I don't want to say, I don't know exactly what then needs to happen based off of whatever feedback they have. But our objective is to not send a single drone out until a third party that does these penetration tests say that a user, whether in the United States, in Europe, anywhere where you're capturing data, your data is secure and is not going to be able to be extracted by unwanted third parties. And I feel like we owe that to our customers. The trouble is that any manufacturer or every manufacturer should do this, but that's not how we measure what drones are acceptable and not acceptable in the drone ecosystem. And I'm talking about Chinese-made drones specifically. There's a certain manufacturer that's probably spent 10 to 100 times more money than any other drone manufacturer to ensure the security of their data. Yet they are the nemesis when it comes to the conversations about data security. It's not about that. It's where the butts are of the R&D people that build this stuff, and whether you trust them or not, or whether you trust their leadership or not. And, if now we're talking about the butts were in one place, but we're benefiting from those butts. We're benefiting from that 10 years of engineering and innovation. And, I don't think anyone should be surprised that this is a route that's being taken. And I think that it's a really compelling one for the whole story of what we're trying to accomplish with aerial data capture. I think it's unique as a product. I don't think anything else is out there has this same story of maturity and reliability, like familiarity, but you've kept the price not, double-digit thousands. Yeah.
You said familiarity there. So, all right. So let's park the it's being tested. That's cool. You said familiarity, but so Aloft have generated a new app for this thing. So in some ways, that's a new way of flying it. So commercial end users all over the place know how to use. I can't remember the phrase you used for the company beginning with D, but they're used to using that. How are they going to be using this? Is this really going to be a workflow that's going to work well for their commercial things they need to do? Because it's useless unless it's making actionable data.
Yeah. So when we talk about Aloft's layers on top of the flight operations, you're going to see things like pre-flight checklist, Lance authorization capabilities on the app, which doesn't exist, on any really manufacturer's apps. So there's a element where Aloft, as their identity, tries to promote compliance with flight regulations. Keep in mind, there's no geofencing on these units. So that element that is with certain manufacturers pushed, there is no geofencing on these units, but in other ways, whether it's airspace maps and weather and things like that, we're promoting compliance. But once you say, okay, I've done my pre-flight checklist, I know my risk for this flight, go fly, is going to be a very, very familiar user interface, a very familiar flight experience. So it's not like you're like, oh, now I'm flying with a stylus pen, or I'm flying, blind because I don't understand these menus. You'll look at it and go, I've seen this. It's slightly different, but yeah.
And I suppose what I have to remember, I have to think about, and then I'll let you jump in. And sorry if I'm taking all this. Reid, what about remote ID?
I was about to ask that. Yeah.
Built in, ready to go, enabled. We're remote ID compliant day one.
Which is law anyway. So so there's no geofencing at all. So for commercial operators, no unlocks, no jumping through a million hoops.
Correct.
Wherever you are, it's on you. You're the responsible pilot. You do what you need to do.
And maybe the way that you phrase that, maybe it sounds negligent, right? But it's
not.
I think it's good. And I think the drone space knows that's not negligence.
No.
The getting unlocks to go fly a mission as a police officer, where you're now you can't fly in that, you can't take off in the area that you are jurisdictionally responsible for. It's not crazy. It was a company making sure that they were not going to run into issues that screwed up the whole thing.
Yeah, I think we all understand why DJI, those who really understand, know DJI and other companies, because they're not alone. Why, look, they are not the same as a guy making a drone in his shed or a small company. When you grow to a certain size, certain legislation requirements are forced upon you, and that's a reality, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I know that there's Brendan Schulman, longtime DJI guy. I know that some people understand him and understand what he was trying to do, but ultimately, I have a lot of respect and personal friendship and love for Brendan Schulman, and I'll say that what his advice was to a large company like DJI, is to, I think sometimes he tried to get them to transcend their normal status of not responding to things and not saying things and not explaining things. But Brendan did try to do things to protect them and to be ahead of the curve, even at the expense of sales, at the expense of revenue, at the expense of, I know as a former CEO of an orange drone that being like, we don't have geofences was a key selling point.
Yeah.
And so DJI did not change that stance just because someone was going to go elsewhere. They wanted to be talking to the FAA as like, we are making sure the national airspace is being secured in the United States and abroad, but FAA here. So I apologize talking to someone in South Africa and someone in the UK that I'm so US centric, but you're talking to an American guy. Brendan sitting on the drone advisory committee with the FAA when he was at DJI. I think he was trying to say, look, we will do the things that are hard for people to do. We will take the lumps that manufacturers wouldn't want to take, because we are sacrificing customers for the purpose of making sure that we're not going to come back and get an earful because someone's flying at a stadium or at an airport. Usually they're just plastic bags that people report, and you know the stories.
We've seen all of that, yeah.
But anyway, no deal.
So whilst I'm on those two, because there's one other thing I just want to add on like that. So we've got no geofence, we've got RID, which is required. Activation. Does the product require activation?
Does not require. You can take it out of the box. You can fly it, and no one ever needs to have any recognition of who owns it and where it's owned at. You would register it if you are planning on using, first of all, the advanced Aloft features, like getting Lance authorization. It's like, who are you authorizing if you haven't submitted that yourself? So registration is required for some things, but to go fly, capture your data, do whatever you want with that data, no registration is required at all. You could just say go fly, bypass all of it.
And there's no restrictions if you don't. You only get the additional benefits if you do.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. You will be able to fly how you want, where you want, in the manner that you want, and you are just responsible for your just like driving a car, you're responsible for what you do with that vehicle, even though you register the car. So maybe that's a bad example. But you guys know what we deal with in drones, where it's like, how many people have been hurt or maimed by a drone? Not that many, but we take it as like these huge dangerous things. Yet, hundreds of thousands or millions of people die via car accidents, and we're just like, oh, but it's a necessary evil. We just got to do it.
Well, with regards to logging then on this, because whilst we've gone down this rabbit hole, so obviously flight logs come with two sides. Some people love them, hate them. The reality is, for commercial operator, they're actually very handy. So
I love them for that. Yeah.
If you need logging, what is the score with this today? So do you have it? Who stores it? Where is that data?
So Anzu does their own log. Anzu does our own logging via Aloft. So Aloft, it produces their own logs. We've actually, I'll say the word broke. We broke the initial logging capability, so it's just Aloft logs that come off the drone. Now, for your logs to be stored on the drone, and this is me talking a little bit out of turn, for the logs to be stored on the drone in case you had an RMA repair, something you needed a repair, which I'm going to add one thing on that. All of the drones come with a care program, so you have a 1 year kind of like peace of mind coverage. We figured that we would just put that out for everybody included in the cost, so that there's
so I'm
more.
not paying extra for that. I'm not paying extra for care refresh for 1 year.
I'm not going to be like, I'm not I don't understand business. It's folded into the price in some way to think about it. But when we talk about what we achieve with pricing, it is very, 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 very fair and competitive across the board with anything that's in the drone space. But having that 1 year care protection would mean that you now have, incidental stuff would be covered, and you get better support and all of that stuff. So we put that into it for peace of mind. But when you do send something in, obviously warranties are covered based off of when you've activated that warranty. When we receive that warranty information, when you register it, it is just serial number and date. We're not saying what's your name and, give us your email and your phone number and your address. It's just serial number, and it was registered on this date. That's all that's stored. But the flight logs, like when you send something in to us as a manufacturer to get repairs, there's probably internal stuff that we can access, but that's going to be on the craft natively. And secured by the bubble that Aloft has put around it. But then when you register, you have all sorts of flight logging capabilities, tagging, sharing, stuff like that. But that's all under the Aloft system. And so it's secure, and you choose who accesses that data.
And I guess that's on US servers then as well. Being Aloft, that's all on their US servers.
All on AWS East servers, I believe.
Okay.
I think they do quite a nice sort of pilot log Aloft. I've not used it, not being in America, but I think they do something which for me would be useful for. I better go off and talk. I better go and ring them. But yeah, I think they do. So that's handy, because that does bug me. I nerdily keep logs in a spreadsheet, and I would rather just. Rather it just happened automatically and natively, and for commercial use that's great. So this really is I know what I was actually going to say is, so will I be able to buy one in South Africa? Will Ian be able to buy one in England, or is this only going to be US only?
So it's not going to be US only, but today, right now, I think with the units that we have, it's going to be US, Canada. That's just because it's easy. We do have CE certification. I don't know what governs South Africa, but we did a list of certifications just to be prepared for international consumption of the product. We feel like what we built is responding to a lot of the very US mindsets, and that's maybe the origin, the U.S. mindsets of what is secure and what's not, and what is the relationship with China specifically. So that's what we were responding to. But we know that globally there's an opportunity, and there's a demand for drones that don't fit in the China scope, and also are at a price point that's attainable for commercial users.
You've reminded me that price point isn't in your press release.
It's not in the press release, but it should be. It's a press release isn't it's not a sales document. It's like, this is the thing.
All right then.
But to be honest, I think the word affordable is in there, and affordable, obviously, like when we're talking about, is a pen affordable, versus is a car affordable in its class. So yeah. I will say that the Raptor, which is the non-thermal version, is $5,099, so $5,100 for the non-thermal, and it's $7,599 or $7,600 for the thermal version. Now, non-Chinese drones are double that price in most cases, in almost all cases, and in some cases they are 5x that price for the same class of drone, just you have a bunch of other things on top of it. So when I say affordable,
but they don't really have, the trouble is they don't really have a bunch of other things on top of it. They don't really.
Well, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for the other things on top of it. But I feel like what we set out to do is make a drone where it's like, no, I could justify that. It's green. Maybe people like it, maybe people don't. But no one's gonna buy the green one just because it's green, right? Like there's a gap between if you are buying Chinese drones and you don't care, you're probably going to continue buying Chinese drones unless you really like me for some reason, or you really like the color for some reason, or Aloft and the security, or future thinking where there could be further, bans, restrictions, and things like that. But I
guess I have to ask the devil's advocate question.
Yeah.
Are you really going to get away with this, with this machine, which is similar in every way? Obviously, you've got to hope you're going to, because if you do, you're going to flatten some of the opposition over there.
And I would say that, truthfully, and this is not BS, I love the competition in the drone space. And I feel like there are some companies that need to do better than just lobbying, that need to figure out the way that they secure a supply chain and a cost structure and a manufacturing facility that does not cost astronomically more and have overhead of, very highly paid people that do menial things. I mean, like I'm running a very lean operation. And even when I was at FLIR for 5 years, it was just me. And I was doing a very substantial amount of business, but I was putting a lot in my backpack. What you see in Anzu Robotics, when you look at the website and you read the copy and all that stuff, that's me. The press release, that was me. The video release, that's me. The B-roll that I sent you, that's me. There's other people involved, but I've had to be so lean and try to make it so that we don't have all this unnecessary stuff, that I'm like a startup with a really freaking good product, right? It's crazy. So when you say, are we going to get away with it? I think domestic, whether we'll say non-Chinese drone manufacturer needs to get better. And we need to have a standard that we're like, this is acceptable, and this is not, whether it's in or out of China. If you're able to have a cyber secure drone that is rid of any sort of human rights violations, which I'm not speaking to any of that, but if you're able to say, look, it comes from a place that's sanctioned, you could do business, you pay tariffs, all that stuff is on board. Drone technology should not be restricted by country. And that is to the detriment of what I've just started. Because if that truly happens and we no longer look at country of origin as the way that this is structured, I don't really have anything good to offer you, anything new to offer you, right?
Sure.
When we talk about the competitive landscape, price is so important, but people have been forced to relearn that you can't expect the Chinese manufactured price anymore. You're going to have to deal with the inflation of drones, which is arbitrarily done based off of country of origin. If that impedes or hurts their growth, it is just time to stop with that country of origin stuff and start innovating. And that's what I truly believe. It's not, we're at the tip of the iceberg. The pie can be grown. We don't need to fight over the scraps. We should just be trying to evangelize the use of this technology for safety purposes, for efficiency purposes, because we will transform the world with aerial robotics. As legislation grows, as safety increases, as the intelligence on the drones increases, we're going to transform the world in the way that we operate. But there are a lot of people that don't have the budget to even give it a shot. The gateway drug of drones, you all know who it's been. Those guys should still be the gateway drug for drones, in my opinion.
Yeah, it makes sense. So really, what we've got here, if I understand this right, we have a licensed design, which you're manufacturing. You have a piece of software from a period in time which you've then been able to run off with and do with as you wish.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, from what you're saying, then this really isn't an SDK. You know, if I think about an SDK, another manufacturer would build their bit on the front of it. You've really just been given a slice in time, and that's how you're moving forward then.
I mean, there's an SDK element for sure,
yes.
Especially on the Aloft side. I mean, you see what the mobile SDK would look like for any developer. It's very similar. So, but it's a custom SDK that was snapshot in time, can't change, whatever, and then you put a wrapper around it. So I don't want to like mislead that. There were a lot of tools that were dropped and said, here, like this is what the agreement includes, to make it so that it wasn't figuring out flight control, wasn't figuring out widgets and things like that, because that's just an astronomical amount of work to do when it's already been done. The purpose is to secure that and to make sure that none of that stuff has any sort of communications.
Yeah.
And even though I would say, from my personal standpoint, there's no reason that said manufacturer or any manufacturer is wanting your data of a cop chasing a crackhead through a forest. That just is not in their interest.
For instance, you know, I mean,
it's just not. It's not. They're not trying to look at your cornfield and be like, oh, there's cornfield. I mean, the argument would be, what if you're talking about nuclear power plants? You're talking about defense stuff.
Yeah.
Don't use them there. Like it's solved. Don't fly in critical, like that sort of sensitive infrastructure type spaces. That's on you, what you put in that space. Even if I asked a partner of mine to send over a credit card because I haven't got my credit card number. And I'm like, I have this on my phone. It's an iPhone. I have a picture of a credit card number. I'm like, what if someone gets in my stuff? And I'm like, no, the truth is the only way you're accessing my stuff on my phone is if you have my phone and you have my password, or you have my fingers. Or
that's actually they stopped, as an aside, they stopped doing those cash point machines like that here, because having your finger is what they did. But anyway,
but I have a 1-year-old, so I turned off face recognition because he'll unlock it and start calling people and stuff, so I can control when it's unlocked and when it's not unlocked. Anyway, or they have my laptop. So basically, I trust my technology to not leak that data, and it's the same. It's the same with the drone stuff that we're producing.
Now, obviously, look, I probably caused a bit of a stir in the Anzu offices when I sent a bit of a Twitter post out going, hold on a minute, this looks an awful lot like a product from a big 3-letter manufacturer. In fact, it almost looks identical. There are elements in that which I've always called like the crown jewels. If I think about what I'll say DJI do best. One thing that they are light years ahead of anyone else on, and that included Autel, Skydio, is their OcuSync, their wireless system. It's what I call their crown jewels, because no one, and I've flown a few Autel drones and they're very good, but as you say, they're just not quite there. No one has ever quite got. I guess there's some stuff that a license wouldn't want to hand over everything for, but I guess your goal is, how do you handle that? I guess you don't know the ins and outs of it, but you know it's not doing certain things. Is that how that handles?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have source code.
No.
And so the source code would be how you marry that chipset and have it do its magical things. Yes. DJI specifically as a manufacturer has innovated beyond any other manufacturer in the space. And I think that even before OcuSync, Lightbridge, I know that big Fortune 5 companies, we'll say Fortune 500 companies, but lots of them were trying to take a DJI drone and undo Lightbridge and say, how are you doing this? This is 5, 6, 7 years ago. They were saying these guys are just doing mind-blowing stuff when it comes to radio control. And these are defense contracting companies in the US that were doing this. They have not written something special for commercial drones. They've written something special for the world. Like how they've accomplished that is special. Could I put that chipset into another drone? The chips, yeah. Making it do what it does, probably not. I mean, I don't know. I'm not the engineer, but I don't think that they've transferred it to the point that I can now like leverage that forever.
Yeah.
Or learn from it.
No, I guess it's sealed boxes within a room is probably the simplest term I'd use for it. And yeah,
and I think that this is a good opportunity to talk about something that I would say most CEOs of drone manufacturers wouldn't go into this world, but people should have a lot of respect for people like Kevin and Conrad, who were a part of this whole, FCC finding. And what they're trying to do is expose the uncertainties people might have about cybersecurity, right? Because most laymen don't know what the hell they're talking about. It's like, my data secure because they said so, or my data secure because it's on a Amazon server. I have engaged with Kevin more than Conrad, but I welcome that kind of scrutiny. I want to be up to their standard. But one thing that Kevin said to me somewhat recently is that there are things within that crown jewels set of things where it's like, you have to make sure, you have to look into that. You have to double click on it and make sure that there's nothing else in there.
Yeah.
It sounds wild to me, and I don't know how people could port into things that are out in the world, not connected to the internet or connected to the internet. It's not, I'm not a hacker. Yeah. I'm not a programmer. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. What I'm exposing is that there are things that people are going to say. There are things that people are going to wonder. And I am going to try to respond to all of them. I can't say I'm going to be good at that. I can't say that I have the answers like off the back of my hand. But I know that as a drone manufacturer, all people want is somebody to be transparent, someone to be responsible for when things go wrong. And I've been putting my neck out on the line for drones for 10 years. I've said, ring it if you got to ring it. And thus far, I've done okay, but with being that person to stand up to these things. So for being able to run an organization and have my own technology and set the culture of what we consider a customer and how we treat them, and we don't leave these things lingering to just fester and cause discomfort for our users or potential users. I want to be on platforms like this and say, look, if there's an issue, say that issue. Let's resolve that issue. Give me a chance to resolve it, but poke at it. Ask the hard questions. It's all. I want things to surface, and I want to become a better person because of it, a better leader. I want to show others that there is a sauce, a secret sauce to just being the person that gets fried a little bit on an interview with Ian and Gary, and it comes out okay. People understand you a little bit better. They understand what you're trying for. They're not going to be like, you must be an operative for some government organization trying to like get their data, because I surely am not that. It's so hard. What you didn't see behind the scenes when you mentioned the leak is that you did me a favor, because I couldn't talk about the technology. You tore it apart and said, side by side, this is what it is. And it's like, okay, that's done. Don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
So what I need to worry about is that you all understand that I'm just a guy with an intention to do something really cool in the drone space, to do something really meaningful. If I sell 100 units and that's it, and then I get shut down, or if governments change language to make it so that Randall's project doesn't pass and you can't do it, or the third-party validation comes back and it's just like too much stuff to fix. Like, that's unfortunate, but I wanted to take this shot, a shot that I think a lot of people have thought, what if you do this? And we have done this, and we'll see how it goes. Do you
really think, sorry, I'm just coming and stamping on you. Do you really think a lot of people thought that this was a thing to try? I'm going to try and lean into the Cogito thing, because we haven't found anything more out about that. But do you really think people, because I think I just thought, wow, this is genius. That's what I thought. I'd never thought of it. I don't know if
I,
Ian had ever
I would
thought of
think that
doing it.
the statement would be like, what if they just manufactured it here? What if
Oh
they
yes,
just
okay,
changed
yeah,
ownership? What
yeah,
if they just did something? Right? I don't think,
okay,
look, you'd be crazy if you went to a billion-dollar company and said, hey, it's me. Hi, I have a little bit of money. Can I have your technology and build it somewhere else? Like, it doesn't work like that. I've been in this space a long time. I am a former DJI employee. I am the former CEO of Autel Robotics. I was at FLIR for 4.5 years. I've worked for now 5 manufacturers of drones. I've been down this space. I've never leaned into country of origin bans, no matter if it benefited me or not. I've always stayed on the side of like, look, proof is going to be in the pudding. And if you wanted DJI to pay $1 million for a firm to go through and prove their cybersecurity stuff without touching it, they already did that. And they said it was good. And then a week later, Department of Homeland Security said, no, it's not good. And then they were like, U.S. federal government stance is not good. But somebody, the Department of Interior, went through and said it was good. NASA went through and said it was good. And I'm not saying that I know these things to be true. I'm just saying that if you want someone to invest to prove that their data is secure, it's been done, but it wasn't good enough. So let's take this new layer. I'm an American. In the United States, I can be sued. I can be arrested. I can be put in prison for if I am selling your data, if I'm doing anything offhand, I can be punished for that. And so I think that I really want that to resonate, that there is a risk involved here with some of the things that people would speculate or say is happening. Like, no, I'm not being puppeteered. I'm not like running back to a manufacturer and asking for permission and sharing your information or anything like that. The intention of this
is the way I'm thinking about this is we're 50 minutes into your press release having gone out, and I suspect all those things, I can't look at the Twitter now because I can't look away. I suspect they're all happening right now.
Maybe. And if so, we've done a good job. If so, then we're getting that attention that is going to ask a whole new chain of questions. And I didn't want to and don't want to sound naive to what this is. I truly believe this is a new chapter for the drone space because it's going to ask a different question.
Yeah.
Is it really about China?
Yeah.
Is it really about?
Come on, I think you don't even need. I think we all know it's not.
Well, yeah,
I think you've gone to quite an extreme way of proving that. But yeah. I know what I'll do. I'll start manufacturing stuff in Malaysia.
I'd say on it, Gad, the last thing I'd say is, what you've done is something I didn't believe would ever happen, and I still find it hard to believe. No, look, I've been around a long time. I've been around as long as you have, and look, there are those of us who've been around here. I used to talk to DJI staff and RC groups. I've been around a very long time, and the day I ever saw a big company, because as you've said, this is like walking into Apple and say, hi, I want the design for the iPhone 15 because I'm going to go and make it in America and sell it myself. And Tim Cook going, yeah, there you go, crack on. You know what I mean? Right. But you have done something that I never thought would happen, and I don't see a single downside here. There are only benefits for the industry, and there are only benefits for people who are looking for something that has been unrestrained. The one thing else, and I don't know if you can comment on this, because we have seen other things that are similar. I guess this licensing agreement isn't you alone. I'm not saying in the same product, but it does seem to be something new we've seen in the industry.
So I can say in the same product, it is me alone, and that's in there. You won't. I don't think you'll see enterprise products going down this road unless it's me behind it. But I can't say that. I can't say that because I don't know for sure. But you're not going to see another of this. I think that you will see an Autel version of it just because that they're going to be like, oh,
really?
That's what we do. Maybe. I'm not saying I know that, but look, this is a blueprint. This is a blueprint for how you change the dynamic. I think you'll see ground robots. You'll see sea-based robots. You'll see VTOL stuff, anything that makes sense that's coming out of a place that's being restricted. That it's like, here is how that could be done. I'm pioneering something in a way, and that's not to take credit for it, but this is how you can take on that challenge. And I feel like now the handbook of how to do that is housed by one organization, which I think is really interesting. But you're talking about the consumer products that have been surfaced. Truthfully, we did not know that was happening. And that is a thorn in the side of the story of this, because I feel like we're doing this very much by the book. It's not like it's not recraft. Like, there's a lot more layers I feel like we're putting on to make this a part of a story of cybersecurity and all that stuff. So, launching before you're ready, and, sending things out and not restricting what gets said about said thing. I thought that was all very interesting, but it makes it seem as though this is something where you can just call up a manufacturer and say, hey, we want to do this too. They will very likely get a lot of those calls and a lot of those questions, but we are not alone. And I think that that's where the legislative environment has pushed companies to be like, what are we going to do to address this? Like, how can we not see an entire market of people and the infrastructure around it? Because the ecosystem, when we talk about Drone Deploy, Pix4D, Drone Sense, Aloft, when we're talking about millions of drones, there's really only one manufacturer. If we're talking about 50,000 drones, you don't have software companies that are building on drones anymore, because there's just not an addressable market anymore. So as a business person, I think that there were decisions made to try to do this. On the consumer side, I don't understand it. I don't understand, because there's not the same pressures there. Maybe they feel something that we maybe don't, that are more focused on the commercial markets. But I don't know. I wouldn't have wanted to make those. So I guess if that was the goal, to make a consumer grade product.
We're holding your time. You wouldn't have done to unpack that if you dare. You wouldn't want to have made those. And why did you say that?
Let me click my calendar to make sure that I have a few more minutes for you. Yes, I'm good. So we can talk for a little bit longer. I wouldn't want to make those because first of all, I don't know anything about the consumer market. It's not that exciting to sell $100 drones, in the millions, and then have all those customer service headaches, all those crash drones that fill up warehouses, all, deal with the Amazons and eBays and big box stores. Like, I that's not my dream. I've been in this space 10 years. 9 of it has been solely focused on the commercial market. So if they said, do you want to also, if there was an opportunity to also build a consumer line, I feel like I'm the luckiest guy in the world, because now I finally get to do something in drones that I really, really want to do. This isn't about the amount of money that could be made. Like, cool that I will be able to provide for my kids and my family doing this. But if there was an opportunity and it was like, this will net you millions, it's just not, I'm the wrong guy for it. Like, could do it, but I wouldn't want to do it. You split yourself into a world of like TikTok influencers. And I just don't know that.
It's true. It's Ian. It's people like Ian. That's Ian and Bruce. That's what you've done. Yeah, in Ian and Bruce world.
So maybe it sounds stupid, and maybe
No. I completely get it.
Okay, because the opportunity didn't come over my desk, and it was never thought that would be something I'd want to do, or that I would approach to do. If it were like, here's the numbers, just run with this thing, and you'll make a killing, and it'll be easy. Maybe, but there's no freaking easy button for drones, and there's no easy button for consumer drones. It's great to have the best technology, but my story to users that are like, my organization is saying I have to shut these down, I have to go find something else, and now I'm going to double, triple the price of getting these drones, or we're going to have to shrink our fleet, reduce the number of our pilots because of this. Like, I'm solving that problem. I don't know if I'm solving a problem by making a non-Chinese consumer drone.
No, makes sense.
Without sounding, too I'm not like I'm having a pop, but I do think we've reached that plateau good enough. And I don't mean good enough in a poor sense. I mean is that there are people out there creating actionable data with this size of drones that's useful in all sorts of places. They're professionals. They know what they need. They've been doing it for a few years. They would like the additional bells and whistles. Yes, that would be nice in a wee while, but they'll just crack on and they'll make money with this now. And that's a great place for this industry to level out, to drop some of the hype, drop some of the BS out of it, and just get work done. And that's so I completely get that that's where you're at.
I look forward to these coming to the UK. I think what we have here really simply is the product that everyone loves without the downsides. What's not to like? It's really that simple. If we skim this off, it's the product everyone loves. We love to hate it at times, but we love, at the end of the day, we love it without any of the political, any of the annoyances, activation, geofencing, the political side. Take all that away. What you're left with is everything we've asked for the last 5 years.
And could I use sorry, I'm jumping on you now, Randall. Could I, if I have an established base of equipment, would I still be able to use my chargers and things like that, the ancillary bits and pieces?
I will plead the fifth that I'm not. Look,
I'm expecting no is what I'm expecting.
Okay, so if I'm
I'm
stuck out in the world and I'm like, oh, I left my charger, but I have a charger from another thing, I sure as hell would try it.
Fair enough.
But I can't. I don't know for sure.
That's the sort of thing people like Ian and I could test. That sort of thing.
One thing. So as we've had a really good hour-long chat, whoever sat through this, I think that hopefully it's informative and you kind of understand the landscape. Yeah. Gary and Ian, both of you, I didn't know very well until I don't know very well now. But it's not like we've had a lot of background conversations. Yeah. Before we started this, I said, ask what you want. Like we can go down any route you would like. When this first leaked out, I would say that there was skepticism from the SUAS news crew. Skepticism of what it is.
There was.
And I'm not saying that because we've had a few chats that you're completely resolved. But Ian, you saying that you what this is all those things people have asked for without the BS. That was the intention. And if you're seeing that light, it's so comforting for me because that is, I've been a part of organizations just like the ones we're talking about. And I know that the BS exists, both the way that they operate and the things that they try to control and the things they try to, not be completely clear about. I wanted to make a drone company that solves all of it. The only thing I haven't solved, to your point about you would love this in the UK, is if you're Scotland Yard and you're using, you have a fleet of really awesome DJI products. You could buy Anzu Robotics products to replace some, but you still need big stuff. And so if you're already justifying the big stuff, then you're probably not justifying having some small stuff that's this, but then big stuff that's that. It's you either can or can't use it. You either should or shouldn't, whatever, based off of your organization. So that's the thing that we haven't accomplished as a company, is that we're not replacing all the stuff that you're using, especially the things that are wrapped up in the geopolitics. We're only creating right now a small non-thermal mapping visual inspection type drone and a thermal drone. 2 flavors. That's what you get. It will definitely bolster your fleet. There's some nice stuff from Aloft that they've built in that will make things nice and easy, but you'll still have to do spreadsheet logs for the things that are outside of that ecosystem. Actually, no, that's not true, because they work with every manufacturer of drones. So once you're using the Aloft platform for this,
then
also your stuff for any real large manufacturer of stuff. So
I'm going to download it right now.
So maybe
then I'm going to call them.
Someone buying an Anzu Robotics drone today, and they have an existing fleet, there may be future thinking where they're like, something could happen, and at least we'll always have these that will not get impeded by that stuff, where the other bigger stuff, other payload things will. But this is just the beginning. This is day one. And what I hope anyone listening to this is, first, like, you've seen that it's not a shell company. You've heard that there's some transparency from my voice out into the world where I have to stand by this stuff. It's on the internet. It's forever. along with my karaoke singing of Mariah Carey and my hip hop
there's a lot of
session
me
in my
online
kitchen,
as well.
right? All this stuff exists forever. And you could go back through. Kevin Finister went back and watched old Unmanned Underground stuff with me and like Bobby Sakaki and stuff. And he was like, oh, you have been saying the same thing forever. And I'm like, yeah, I've been saying this stuff forever. It's not a new me, new year, new me, not a new company, new me. Like, this is who I've been. And I just want people to listen to this and be like, all right, there's something to this, and then put it to the test. You know, as far as the hardware, if you've flown said drones, you know what the hardware is going to feel like. If you expect certain features, they're there. Like, it's pretty comprehensive. It's really, do you trust me? Do you trust the company? Does it matter that we're building these in Malaysia? Does it matter that we're securing your data in the US? If all that stuff works, we want to work with you. We want to work for you. We want to try to change the conversation in the drone space. And if I can accomplish that, I feel like I've done like a thing that could be, you know, on my tombstone, because that's what I'm living for.
Wow, that's a great place to finish. We've had a lot of your time, especially now because your phone's going to be ringing off the hook. This has just been released, and you're going to get love and hate. Both sides of the coin are going to be coming your way right now. So we've led you in, I think, a gentle hour leading into your first hour of this chaos. Good luck with the rest of the day. Thank you very much for being so candid and honest with us. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I really appreciate your time today. No, I really do. So,
yeah, grateful for you guys. Grateful for the work you guys do to expose things that are happening in our space. It's so important for me as a manufacturer to work, you know, with and through you, because people trust you. People look to you for guidance on this stuff, and you can't always trust, you know, who's benefiting from it. So I appreciate you guys giving the platform, taking your time, and it's been
the checks in the post. Is that right?
Yeah.
No.
One for each of you.
Oh, that's it. Good.
So,
Good.
I know that, Gary,
there's no check in the post.
If I sent you the check in South Africa, you would just tell Ian that you had a storm and that you won't be able to send out his portion.
Apparently, he's never shared with me, Randall, right, any of his extreme income off this weekly stream. I know. He tells us, right, it makes about £1.25 a year, right? He tells us.
Yeah, does he? Though? Didn't even make that much.
He's got on that note, guys, time to stop.
Yeah, we're wasting his time now. Thanks very much, Randall. I look forward very much to seeing what happens with Anzu. Guys, follow. I'll put the link. It's anzurobotics.com. I'll put the link in here.
Or reach out to me via email, randall@anzurobotics.com. If you want to come directly to me and give me those thoughts, whether positive or negative, I want to hear from people. I want to know what I missed, because this has been, you know, a very lonely place for the last 14 months. And so it's nice that, you know, 2 weeks ago when the FCC stuff came out, it's like, at least now somebody is like aware that there's a thing happening. So
we spotted them.
Exactly. So really, again, appreciate you, and look forward to hearing feedback from both you and your audience.
Thanks very much, Randall. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye. Yep.